So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato.
Stop it. Yes, hello everybody. Come on, don't be shy. Oh, I'm not shy. There you go. There you go. Yes, yes. Enjoy it now, for it shall be gone very soon. Yeah. Sorcerer, did you stay up all this time just to do that? Hello everybody and welcome back to the lab. Thank you so much for stopping by. Yes, it is true. It's all gone. Well, I say that, but obviously as you can kind of see, like, it's already coming back in. Da, 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 da. Oh my goodness, let's see who we got in here. We got Farinor, we got John the Viewer, we got Sorcery. Oh my goodness, hello everybody. Thank you so much. Banana Cat Russian. We got so many people here. Hello. It's only 23:40. I feel like that's plenty of time to get up to experiments and so forth, right? Oh, thank you for the lurk, Sorcerer. I appreciate it. Sleep well. I'll talk to you sometime tomorrow. Yes, hello everyone. Oh, let's see here. running a bit behind, so we are going to just jump right into it. And tonight we actually are on a bit of a time crunch as a result. But I wanted to do a quick sorcery shout out because she is amazing, and because look at this froggy set. Just look at it. It's incredible. It's amazing. Oh, fantastic. I am trying so hard to get that emote to be like top of the most used emotes list on Discord. It's where is it at right now? Hello, doll. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to the lab. Welcome back to the lab, I should say. Let's see here. Where is it's on number 4. In the span of time between when it was released and now. Let's see here. Figured out what you're gonna code on stream? Go on. There's this advent of code where you get a new assignment each day of Christmas. Interesting. Now I've heard of advent of code, but I never actually dug into it, so I'm now very curious. Tell me more, Farinor. Let's see here. Let me get into main. And let's get the code screen up. Oh, we have secrets. No secrets. All right. Actually, first we need to get our Trello board up. There we go. All right. So, since the last time that we met was that Saturday, I have not done any additional work off stream. Other than to do a little bit of research. And specifically, there was this particular feature that is of particular interest to me, which is to automatically shout out raiders whenever a raider enters the stream. I want to basically be able to have the bot greet whenever somebody raids the channel. Now, I think it's no surprise that raids are a little scuffed on Twitch because apparently there's like a minimum viewer limit before this triggers. On the one hand, it kind of makes sense from like a DDoS perspective, but on the other hand, it's very sad whenever like somebody raids the channel, but like it's just them, or it's just them and a handful of viewers, and the raid doesn't happen. Like, that makes me very sad. But I was digging into how to do this. Where's your Eldritch Monster code? We're getting there, John, I promise. But yes, so apparently raids are in IRC. So that's kind of bringing up some interesting things here. Let's see here. So what do we have? It's a website. Last year was really fun. You build Santa computer things. So that's that's cool, Farinor. I'm kind of curious. Huh. I will have to give that a look. Advent of code. I'll have to give that a look sometime after stream. And the Shining Sun, bro. Welcome, mate. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome back to the lab. How goes the experiments? They go really well. We are chugging along at the moment on things that we are attempting to implement. And right now, it's going pretty damn good. So, can't complain. How are you doing, mate? Let's see here. Yes. So, as I was doing my research, I basically came to the conclusion that, number one, raids are apparently not announced as part of the PubSub client, the thing that we literally just spent all this time implementing. Apparently, raids are not included in PubSub. Number two, it actually turns out that I was very, very wrong, like very wrong, about a particular comment that I may or may not have made about IRC. And about IRC not supporting subs, resubs, gifts, and etc. Turns out I was very wrong on that front. And not only that, but if I remember correctly, there was also a bits note. If I remember, yep, there was also a bits note that happens as well. So effectively, all of the functionality that we have been wanting to implement has actually been available inside of IRC this entire time. Yeah. So. Although I think that there was a limitation. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there was a thing. Tags, maybe? User notice, global state, priv message, room state, user notice. Go. So user notice. Sends a notice to the user when any of the following events occur. Subscription, resubscription, or gift subscription occurs to the channel, which is kind of big. An incoming raid to the channel, which I've kind of needed for a good while. And then there's the general like raid ritual. I'm not entirely sure what that's really for. But yeah. There's a lot of information that that comes in down here. Like a lot of information. Subs, bits. I think bits was in here. It actually mentions whenever a bits badge is updated. I don't remember if it sends a note whenever somebody. I'm pretty sure something fires whenever there's a new bits emote. I'll have to turn this on to see what happens, but yes. So the question effectively then becomes, well, do we proceed with the PubSub client? And with PubSub, we're effectively going to fight with, for lack of a better term, we're going to fight with PubSub to get some of these various pieces like subscriptions, resubscriptions, and etc. Or do we bite the bullet and do that inside of IRC? The last thing that did kind of pop up to me, let me see if I can find it. Where were you? Here it is. The last thing that kind of popped up was a strange one to me, which is this thing called Event Sub, which sounds like PubSub, but details. And this comment specifically: long term, our plan is to provide a single product, Event Sub, that allows developers to subscribe to events and receive notifications over many different transports. So that tells me a couple of things. Number one, if this documentation is to be believed, which it sounded like it is, after some kind of cursory research, Twitch is basically trying to condense everything to Event Sub. Like long term, their intention is for Event Sub to be kind of the source of truth for all of these different events. So that would be things like a stream has gone online. A broadcaster has a new follower. A thing that is not supported inside of IRC or PubSub. Followers. Madness. Subscribers, cheers, channel points, like basically everything is there. And it's all in this thing that they call Event Sub. So it's just a brand new thing to consider as part of the build. But why not follows? I don't know. Like, follows exists in Event Sub apparently, but follows does not exist inside of IRC or PubSub, which are the two clients that we are currently interfacing with. The other part to this though is that I didn't see chat on this? I feel like there should be. There definitely should be somewhere. Cheer. So there's channel cheer. A user cheers on the specified channel. Channel points, which I think would be reward redemption. A viewer has redeemed a custom channel point redemption. Hype train. Stream online. So imagine the capability of like, hey, I go online, the bot immediately sends a notification to Discord instead of me having to run my little Discord command. The thing that I don't currently see right now though is chat. That is something that I don't currently see. So it's like it's one of those things of whenever you're integrating with a third-party system, which in this case Twitch would be our third-party system, there's always this question of, especially when you're building brand new, do you work with the technologies that exist? So this would be IRC and PubSub in our case. Or do you kind of take the hit of, well, no, actually, we should definitely pop over to this new PubSub thing. Like maybe we should pop over to this or event sub. PubSub, event sub, it's like they're the same thing, but they're not. It's like, do we just go ahead and bite the bullet and swap over? Now, in a normal project, so like if this was a project that we were working on at a company, the answer would be no. Like the answer would be continue on with what we're doing. So continue on with IRC and PubSub until those two things don't become viable, and then build the new thing later. So that is absolutely a thing that that happens at some point. However, this is not necessarily working for a company, nor is there any timeline necessarily on this being this way. So yeah, to say the least, the last couple days since Saturday have been kind of interesting, just reading through this documentation and trying to really understand, like, what is Twitch wanting to do? How do you use it, for starters? But then beyond that, like, how does that affect the bot? Does it affect the bot? And if it does affect the bot, is that something that we should take on now? Or is that something that we should take on later? And with that, the cat's food just dropped, and they are, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but they are scratching at the door. So let me get them their food, and I'll be right back. So pardon me just a second. But of course, we have to pay homage to our cat overlords, otherwise if we don't, then they may yeet us out of existence, and that would not be ideal now, would it? Oh my goodness. Alrighty, let's see here. So let me move that down just a little bit. There we go. So the thing that I have not yet seen in this documentation, though, is there's a mention at the very top here, which is that you'll be able to receive notifications over many different transports, webhooks, WebSockets, etc. The problem is that they're all webhooks. Like when you look at the examples that they give, they're all webhooks. So, and webhooks are not really things that I want to build in the bot right now. Webhook, by the way, for anybody that's not unfamiliar, is basically just a URL that this Twitch event will be able to call. So imagine we take the bot, we host it on some server, and it's behind bot.medgelabs.io. I would then send Twitch a subscription, in this case, a event subscription. I want to listen to channel.follow. And when you send me this event, I want you to call this URL. And effectively what that is a webhook. It is a URL that I have told Twitch explicitly exists, and Twitch is going to expect to be able to call that URL with the given payload. Sorry, one of the cats was attempting to go at the other's food. And so I would tell Twitch, hey, for channel follows, call https bot.medgelabs.io/follow. And /follow would be a REST API that exists inside of the bot that is waiting to accept traffic. That's effectively a webhook. Whereas what we have right now is a series of WebSockets. So it's more of a bidirectional pipe that exists inside of the code, and I can send events on that WebSocket. Twitch will send events on that WebSocket. It's kind of just like a dedicated pipe that all messages are being sent to and from. Let's see here. So TLDR, I wanted to bring this up mostly as just kind of as a recognition that there might be something, this might be something to consider in terms of where we go in the long run for the bot. Mostly because, I mean, it doesn't really make sense for us to build in obsolescence. Yeah, there's the word. It doesn't make sense to really build in obsolescence this early into the bot. But at the same time, we're kind of having to make that decision to weigh, do we continue down with what we already have implemented, which would be IRC in this case, and a tiny little bit of PubSub, kind of, sort of. Do we continue down with that path and make that more feature-rich? Or do we basically just create a new client, a second, or in this case, it would be a third client, and start porting things over? The other problem with this too is that doesn't really, like, webhooks don't really work very well in regards to local testing, because what URL is it going to hit? I mean, unless you're setting up something like ngrok, I think is what it's called. Yes. Which ngrok is effectively a thing that would allow you to have a URL into localhost. It's a little sketch at times, but as long as you do it right, you're more or less okay. But it does make local testing a bit more difficult than, say, a WebSocket, which is, I call out to Twitch, I establish that socket connection, and Twitch now has everything that it needs to send messages to and from. I know this is a lot of theoretical thoughts, but oh, this is a lot of theoretical thinking, but for something as core and as important to the backbone of the bot as its client transport, it definitely feels like something that warrants a lot of kind of iteration and brainstorming to see what makes the most sense. And with that, the stand for my new light has shown up, and I desperately need that. So give me just a second. So sorry. That awkward moment when the channel becomes an unboxing channel. So, that doesn't look like the same size, but we're about to find out. So, in the interim, for those of you that are currently in chat, I did want to kind of pull out and ask. So right now, perhaps I should actually change this back to the code page. Okay. So, recognizing channel point redemptions we have actually done as part of the PubSub integration. So that part is done, as well as the we'll call it the infrastructure for creating the PubSub client. So all of those pieces at this point are done, at least as far as I'm aware. And obviously over here in to-do, there is a very big to-do, in my opinion, for me, which is to get the bot testable. And probably one of the first things to do in that realm, and by the way, apologies, it's going to get really dark here for just a second. I know Streamer is sitting here making changes to the streaming setup while streaming. Scuffed AF. I know. But this is actually bothering me. So, automatically shouting out raiders is kind of a big thing that I would like to do personally. But I did want to pull out to the chat to see what you guys wanted to see. If there was any feature in particular that is either on the board or possibly something that's not on the board that you were interested in seeing, I wanted to pull out and see if there was any particular features that people were interested in. As I sit here and slowly that actually works perfectly. Holy crap. I finally joined the legion of streamers that have a ring light, because unfortunately I kind of needed it. Get that. Here. Bear with me all. Sorry about this. There we go. Oh, that is even solid too. Hello. Nice. Alrighty then. That worked surprisingly well. I was kind of expecting it to be a pain in the butt, but that was really simple, actually. Okay, let's just put that there. I mean, it's not the greatest. It's not quite as good as, or at least it's not quite as comfortable as what my previous setup was, which was effectively just an LED light that was shining against the wall that's immediately behind my desk. That was actually refracting light back onto me, and it worked very well because it wasn't quite as bright. Whereas this, on the other hand, is just like a bright LED light that's in the corner, and it's kind of one of those things where my eyes keep going like nyet, 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 nyet. Streamer problems. Are you considering building one? Ooh. What how would you go about doing that, Farinor? I'm curious. I think I bought this one off of Amazon for $10-12, give or take. Mind you, I will say that the adjustability it's okay. It's probably good enough, I would say, for most people, but like you either have bright AF or not quite bright AF. This is actually kind of where I prefer it to be, personally. Philips Light Therapy Lens, which is basically a big diffused light. I see. And I also see the possibility there. Uh-huh. Ha ha ha. I see. You have piqued my interest, Farinor. So, anything in particular that that people are interested in seeing? Let me know in chat. For today, I think we're going to continue down the path of shouting out shout outs for raiders. But yeah, I'm kind of curious. Kind of curious to see if there's anything that that people are like, why haven't you done this? WTF? Because that's typically how that that goes for me. All right. So when it comes to raids, and this is going to be a little difficult to test because I mean, unless I have like God forbid, poor sorcery is. Hey sorcery, can you raid my channel? Hey sorcery, can you raid my channel? I'm gonna be one of those assholes. Ugh. It's gonna be kind of difficult, I think, to test this. Unless there's a way to send explicit user notices, I'm kind of just gonna have to build this off of the documentation for user notice. Maybe? But conveniently, this this blog from Hydrogen 18, this is what kind of got us started on Twitch IRC. And they actually have an entire section about parsing user notices. And user notice is the command in... ooh, interesting. User notice is the command in this in IRC that allows us to get all of that information. But in order to see user notice, that is, I think, where I left off with my research. So let's see here. Member state, by default, we do not send this to client without this capability. I think it might be membership. Adds tags, and then several Twitch specific commands. Which is commands. Okay. So there's a piece of IRC which I think we were playing around with at some point, but then we just kind of stopped. Was it in here? Right. So we do authenticate, we do join, and then we need the capability requirements. So it's called capability requirements. Capability or capability requests. And capability requests are more or less a request to Twitch for additional functionality on IRC. So by default, we end up with this setup, which is just mostly priv messages. You don't really get anything else other than priv messages, which is what we're currently seeing in the bot right now. But to get other notices, which would be things like single message removal, the channel starts or stops host mode. Interesting. But the one that we are interested in is user notice. And user notice is more or less a catch-all for many Twitch specific things. And that's where we get things like subscriptions, raid messages, so on and so forth. And that is down here. Identifies a user's chat settings or properties, or not user notice. Use with the tags capability, which has additional parameters. So what I would kind of like to do, what you effectively do to request this capability is you send Twitch a cap rec. It looks like this. And so for Twitch, we need to send something that looks like this. But we do that inside of, no. We do that inside of IRC. So capability requests, for here, I think I want command capability request for user notices. Going to sneak out, need some sleep. No worries, Farinor. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you, and have a good evening. Cheers, mate. So this is going to be for user notices, raid, subs, etc, which is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. If error equals irc dot caprec, error does not equal to nil, nil. We want to do more or less the same thing. Fatal, this is all IRC authentication, not bot. Important distinction for debugging. IRC caprec commands failed. And then if I remember correctly, the caprec was just, yep. Okay, so what I think I'm gonna do, for the sake of simplicity, is I'm going to post like so, capability request for IRC, do not include the twitch.tv Yeah, okay. I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to do this, but we're not building a generic IRC, so this should be fine. So let's go back up here. And so that makes this command become commands. Is it command or is it commands? Commands, plural. Fantastic. Okay. So that's going to give us user notices. And let's let's see here. Yep. So I think now the problem with this is more or less that I don't really have a good way of like testing this at the moment. Although note that now inside of the startup sequence, we have this send for in the initial case we have pass, nick, join, and then now we have this capability request for commands. We also received an acknowledgement for twitch.tv/commands. So that's effectively Twitch's way of saying, you requested this thing and we just gave it to you. Well, hello, tiny cat. Ah. Obligatory tiny cat. Girl. That back in there. So we have that capability request. I'm curious if this actually does anything. It doesn't. Okay. I actually don't know if there's a good way for me to test that. Ah, crap. I don't think there is a good way for me to test that. Do you get points for watching your own stream? Jabata, thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to the lab. And actually, no. Down at the bottom of my chat window is is the little channel points, the lab credits icon, and then just infinity. I have infinite lab credits, it appears, which basically means that I have gone into the lab credit system and hacked it. Oh, now what was this? What was this message? That's even more cheating than I thought. I'm sorry, Jabata. I've been caught. So what was this? Oh. I think I know. Log dot println message dot. I'm not really gonna like that very much. I mean, this is about to be just chat spam, but I think that message was actually a user notice. And I just didn't get it. Actually, let me, I didn't get it because, let me do this. Which direction is it? Yeah. And I didn't get it because what's effectively happening is that it's, these chat messages are filtering their way down to the logging handler, and the logging handler is not set up to really handle, well, anything else. Oh, okay. So it was a join message. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay. I did forget about the join messages, so that's okay. Unfortunately, this is about to call off or to call out some lurkers, and I apologize in advance for that. But that's very interesting. Okay. The challenge here is that I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the easy way, quote unquote, the easy way to test this would be to take one of the example messages, like this one right here, and use that in a test. And of course, this brings me back to the reality that I don't have a very good testing setup in this code. Oy vey, that. Oh dear. That just makes me very sad that that we don't really have a good testing setup here, but oh, okay. Huh. I'll keep an eye on that. Well, maybe the reality is that we just don't really have enough to truly test this. Okay. Okay. So what I think I might do, instead of that, so let's see here. If message dot command does not equal priv message, and this is definitely a temporary, so to do remove this when tested. Or actually what we can do is we can do this. So effectively what I would like to do is a nasty little if-else block. Log.println. No. This plus message.string. So effectively what I'm kind of doing here is I don't really want non-priv messages to escape to the bot just yet. Instead, for testing purposes, I actually just want any message that is not a priv message, which is kind of the majority of the messages that we work with at the moment. So for example, I do a hello world, that apparently sends a user state, which is interesting. Oh, is that like on first message or something? Oh, that would be very interesting. That would be very interesting. I'm going to make a note of that real quick. Hang on. Where's my user state on first message? Not MSG. I've been watching far too much Uncle Roger lately on YouTube. Huh. Okay, that's very interesting. But is unfortunately something that we're not really going to be able to do much about. Whoa. I don't know what just happened. I don't know what just happened in my editor, but that was an explosion of nope. Holy shit, what just happened? Huh. I have no idea what just happened, but Vim went boom. This is why I don't use Vim. That's fair. It's fair, all things considered. I love Vim with a fiery passion, but man, does it confuse the shit out of me sometimes. So this is going to be draft for IRC commands for RAID messages. And that, it's what makes me wonder if there's a good way to actually test that. Like, maybe there's somewhere that Twitch is like, hey, here's a fake raid or something of that nature, but yeah. To be determined. Okay. So, unfortunately, though, I think that does mean that there's not really a whole lot that we can do with this right now. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything that we can do with that right now. So, I kind of do want to play around with this a little bit. Okay. Which unfortunately I'm going to have to cut stream early tonight. Probably going to cut in about 30 minutes or so. But in that time, I do want to take a stab at this piece, which is something that I've been wanting to work on for a little while now. Oh, let's see here. Let's do a quick catch up. So, the feature that I want to work on right now is to make WebSocket connections testable. Now, technically speaking, if I understood some of these packages correctly, there is already a way to make these things testable. There's already a way to make an IRC with a WebSocket connection testable, technically, through the use of mock libraries and so forth. So, full disclosure, I am very much against mock libraries. I personally don't like mock libraries because I feel that most of the time whenever I use a mock library, I'm spending more time setting up mocks than I am setting up tests. And that's a very kind of like weird statement to say, but I just personally don't find mocks and mock libraries to be particularly ergonomic. At the same time, I've had instances in the past, and this is mostly in Java and Spring Boot projects, where like we've set up an entire thing around a mock, and the mock actually hid when an API changed. And because of that API change, despite the fact that our mocks, the way that they were set up, the mocks effectively hid that API change happened, so our tests didn't catch that error. And it's little things like that have kind of built up this kind of unnatural, unfair despisal, which is a word that I've just made up, to mock libraries. What I prefer is either interface-driven code to a degree, or I prefer effectively test instances, which kind of sort of feeds into the interface-driven code. I don't believe that everything should be an interface, because not everything really needs to be an interface, but like the boundaries of your code, which a WebSocket connection to the outside world absolutely qualifies as a boundary to your code. So in my mind, something like a WebSocket.conf, that should really be some kind of an interface. Something that basically buffers us from this idea of the outside world is a WebSocket connection. There's all kinds of caveats there, but specifically with Gorilla, the problem with Gorilla, call it a problem if you will, is that in that vein of testability to an interface, I've yet to find an interface that Gorilla implements that I know. So for example, Gorilla, as far as I'm aware, is not an IO read-write closer. As far as I'm aware, I kind of want to test that theory again. IO.readWrite closer is it's a type that it's basically an interface. Let me show it. If you've ever heard in Go, you've heard somebody talk about the IO reader, IO writer interfaces, and basically those interfaces being some of the most powerful interfaces in the Go library. This is what they're talking about. It's quite literally an interface that describes reading from and writing to something. What that something is, it genuinely doesn't matter. But they create these kind of consistent interfaces for reading, writing, and in this case, closer, which is just a method that has a close function that potentially returns an error. The benefit to this is that, so read, write, closer, and just IO reader and IO writer, those interfaces are used everywhere in the Go standard library. And this is actually a very common interface to use if, say, for example, your code is going to interface with operating system files. You declare a read, write, closer as your dependency, and then wherever it is that you're setting up your code, you give the file. File implements io.readWriteCloser, but so too does things like a byte buffer. Byte.buffer is an IO reader, as far as I'm aware. It's and that's important because that gives you a layer of, basically a layer of composability where you can create a testable resource. And the theory for the bot, specifically IRC and PubSub in this case, because of the refactor that we've done with the bot, which I'll talk about here in just a second, testability on the bot side is a little bit easier now, which is awesome. But for IRC, we don't really have that same capability unless we were to make a change like IO read write closer. Now, obviously, the problem is that if we come down to our, where are we? Our IRC.connect, I think, is where we initialize this. Yep, there she be. So cannot use variable of type con, which I'll just double check to make sure. Sting. So the short answer is no. It is not an io.readWriteCloser because it doesn't implement the closer interface. It doesn't have the method of close that closer is looking for. Whoops. And again, the whole idea that I've been kind of churning around in my head around read write closer is that my theory is that if I had an IO read write closer, then I could potentially create a test for IRC where the connection was just, say, a byte buffer. And then if the connection was just a byte buffer, then effectively I could pretend like that byte buffer was a network connection. And now all of a sudden I have this this kind of isolated environment for IRC to run in. That's the theory anyway. The challenge, though, is actually looking at the read and write methods, like how they actually happen. There's a little bit of work here that would have to be done. So yes. Anywho, pausing for just a moment because I kind of just went off on a completely separate tangent from what we were talking about initially. But any questions, curiosities, or does anybody have any suggestions for? Effectively, is there another way for me to look at this? Because I feel like I'm definitely in this mindset of this is the way that I should go, but I don't exactly have a good justification for an alternative. And I'm kind of curious if I'm missing something there. Let's see here. And I also mentioned that with the bot kind of became a little interesting when it comes to testing, because the bot is now, it's not dependent on any particular client. the only thing that it really cares about are these inbound and outbound plugins, which, as a reminder, because I have to remind myself on occasion, inbound plugin collection and outbound plugin collections are basically just a collection of inbound, outbound, or plugin interfaces. And an example of a plugin would be like the IRC. The IRC is both an inbound and an outbound. It's a read-write type of client. PubSub at the moment we are treating as a read-only, so it's an inbound-only client. But the bot doesn't know who those clients are. The bot has no idea for those plugins who they are, what they do, what they interact with, and in fact, the bot doesn't really care. This idea of a plugin is more or less our interface. And this is kind of where some of this thought process around, do I make it an IO read writer? Do I make it something else? Yada, yada, yada. That's kind of where a lot of this comes from, is this idea of if you have an interface on the boundary of your application, you can swap them out. You can swap them out for implementation, for testing. You can do all kinds of things as long as that interface is simple, succinct, and sound. Simple, succinct, and sound. S3. No, that's an Amazon. That's an Amazon tech. Can't use that. As long as you have that interface, and that interface is more or less, it solves the purpose of kind of generifying that external dependency, then you can replace it in a test, and you can actually get some very powerful capabilities. So, for example, the byte buffer that I mentioned from earlier. The reason that I'm looking at io.readWriteCloser, that more or less gives me the ability to, say, put a byte buffer on the other end and pretend like I'm a network. Like, that's a very powerful capability because I can send arbitrary commands to the IRC, and I can basically see in real time what the IRC is reading, what the IRC is returning. I can do all kinds of tests in that capacity, which is super cool. But many choices, many decisions. It's something that's been on my mind for a good while now. And it's something that, I mean, I've mentioned maybe 1,000 times at this point that the lack of testability on the app right now actually bothers me. It's something that I do want to fix. Like, bot test isn't even a thing. Like, that's terrible. That's actually pretty terrible. Let's see here. And there's a couple of things here that maybe doesn't make sense. Like send message, for example, it might make sense to validate that, like if I register a bunch of outbound plugins with the bot and then just send the bot a message, then it's a good test there would probably be ensure that I sent the message into the bot and I receive an outbound message somewhere. Or even for registering handlers, there's a test there. Like if I register myself as a handler and then I send a message to the bot, then that handler better receive that message. And actually, same thing with send message. Now, send event being up here, I don't really like. I kind of like for code again to kind of read like prose, and prose reads top to bottom. maybe it does make sense for this to be immediately underneath it. The alternative is that I could have this code. Is there any other? There are no other references. Okay. So it might make sense for this to just be an anonymous function instead of it being its own method, but nah, that's kind of nitpicking. It's kind of nitpicking on things. I don't really think I need to. I don't really think I need to deal with that right now. What do I have? 15 minutes? 15 minutes. Not a whole lot of time. So you know what? For the sake of saying that we actually did something, which is a fun feeling, let's at least write a test. Let's write a test for register handler. Let's see what that would look like. And then so this looks something like this. Func test register handler, and T is of type testing.t. Testing.t is a built-in testing library inside of Go, which is, in my opinion, pretty freaking cool. Like that's the thing too, like Go's opinionated way of doing things. They have their own testing library, unlike the 500 of them that exist inside of Java. Just saying. Okay, so how would we do this? Bot equals new. Let's see. We don't really pass anything here. We really just receive a new bot. So bot equals new. Then bot dot register handler. Register greeter coming from. Huh, that's interesting. Register handler registers a function that will be called concurrently when a message is received. Yes. And then what I would like to do, I'm kind of being a little bit lazy. I'm just going to grab the handler here. And then close that, close that, close that. Okay. Oh, so we have to have comma there. And there's a couple of ways that I think I could do this. Handler must validate message received. So what I'm expected is a new event. And let's say, I want to call this, let's just say a new chat event. Why not? Expected dot message equals hello bot. Because why not? So this is the event that we're going to send to the bot, and that's an event that we expect our handler to receive. So in this case, we can say if message dot type does not equal to chat message. This is just one way of doing it. This is effectively negative testing. Then we can do t dot ref expected chat message but got, and then we'll do a percent plus v. And here we'll get message. So effectively what I'm doing is I'm creating a handler whose only purpose, more or less, is to check for a specific type of message. Now, this is technically a little bit fragile, because if we ever get to a point where we initialize, we send init messages. So something like, hey, bot is now running, or the stream is run, or whatever the case may be, something that fires off automatically as part of the bot startup, then this test could potentially become a, it could potentially become a bit of a bottleneck. Bottleneck? A flaky test? Yes. But for the time being, it gives us what we need it to. Oh wait, no, I should absolutely have this as expected %s type what got, so this would be expected.type, and then we get message.type. Ah, right. I forgot that type is a type is an integer. For this, we want to. I'm basically just making sure that my test messages are well enough. But got %s, and this is message dot. We need expected dot message, and then we get message dot message. Literally all that this test is doing is making sure that we have handler registration sorted. That's all that it does. Now, the challenge, though, is that handlers are an async thing. It's something that happens inside of a Go routine. So what we will probably have to do is something like this. We're effectively setting up a test timeout. So in our case, we're going to use a channel. Now this is the equivalent of t.fail, so that shouldn't take us back out. 1. But what we're effectively doing is signal test completed successfully. And now out here, we need to send message to the bot. And then if this times out, we failed somewhere. More than likely, we're not going to hit the timeout. We're probably more so going to get an error, basically a test failure at some point. But this gives us the ability to account for a timeout. So case done. And this is going to be receiving off of Dunchan t dot don't think we have to do anything. Actually, I feel like we don't have to do anything. What will we do here? Return? Maybe? And what I do want to do, channel, or what I want, Golang channel timeout, which I think is just timer dot something. Time dot after, there it is. I think, actually, we could do this. We could just do... Oops. Time dot after 3 times time dot second. T dot fail, I suppose. Timeout. Hit, waiting for handler response. This would actually be error. Or error. Yeah, just error. I think we do still need the Dunchan. If we receive something, then return. More or less that I think will kick us out of the function. Go test func. And then this should fail after a couple. Yep. Timeout hit waiting for handler response. Hell yeah. All right. So, oh boy. I just realized that in order for this to actually make it to the bot, or maybe we could just do, well, I don't think there is a good way of doing this. Because now we've got bot.listen. Bot.listen is receiving on bot.events. We might be able to access that. It would be super handy if we could. Bot.events. Aha. Aha. Ooh, this might work. This might work. Okay. Go test func. Nope, we're still hitting a timeout. Okay. Panic. Test timed out after 10 seconds. Oh dear. T dot. Is there a way to do this? Oh boy. Something that I'm going to have to look at a little bit more. Yeah, probably. Because if we don't do this... Oh dear. That's not what I wanted. We don't do that. Deadlock writing to 2-0 buffered channels. So you know what? You might be right there, really, Frank. Also, welcome to the lab. Thank you so much for stopping by. That time dot after wasn't a wasn't unbuffered. I forget This is where I do dumb things. Let's see here. Go test funk. Yeah. Yeah. No, so that's not right. Oh, didn't want to do that. Whoops. Bot test. Oh, shoot. Got a whopping 2 minutes before I have to take off here. So really, Frank, just to kind of catch you up real quick. So we were attempting to add a couple more tests to the bot, since that is something that has been bothering the crap out of me. And what I was attempting to do as a first test was to test basically register handler. So the thought here was register a handler that basically just checks that it received a message of the correct type. And really at this point, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what the message is. It just matters that it received the message. And I think that's probably a bit of a hard thing to do, considering the way that we have set this up. Yeah, so it might require something. But anyway, and then the thought was that I would just use an integer channel to indicate the test is done. But of course, I tried to do that with a channel. I tried to do this little bit, and then I ended up in the panic that we are currently in right now. And it's probably worth noting that if I do that and do go test funk, it feels like this is what's screwing me. I think I am getting this, and I can actually check that. Log dot line done. And then of course I don't I get basically the same timeout, or I get my panic is what actually happens, which is fun. So something to dig into. And actually I can also do go test all the things. And there's that deadlock. At least I think that's the deadlock. It should have been dead by now. Oh dear. Go, race detector, go. Running with dash race definitely slows things down a little bit, but that's a very powerful tool. I'll take it. But unfortunately, that is all the time that I have for tonight. Yeah, so we'll probably come back to that. It is slow, yeah. It's super powerful though. Like, for a tool that's that powerful, I feel like accepting a little bit of slowness is kind of okay, considering what it does for you. So, but anyway, apologies for the short night. Tuesdays are kind of getting a little rough. It's getting a little rough to keep up with, and obviously I don't really get as much time to spend with you all as I would prefer, like what I get to do on Saturday morning. So I apologize for all of the schedule changes. I know that inconsistency is a little difficult for people, and I do apologize for that. I am still working out the schedule. Tuesday nights are getting a little rough, so I'll probably poll out in Discord to see what everybody feels. Do we keep it and just move it to a different time? Do we move it to somewhere else? I don't really know at this point, I'm afraid. But unfortunately, again, Tuesdays are getting a little hard to keep with. So, but I will message that out in Discord, and there should be a video that'll show up on the YouTube channel for whenever I'm going to be working on these tests offline. So yeah. Yeah, bad EU time for sure, really, Frank. And the majority of my viewership is EU, so I'm kind of inclined to cater to that personally. So, but for the time being, I think we'll go ahead and call it there. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I know that this was a bit of a less action-packed episode of the lab, and I apologize for that. But that's kind of that's some of the bit of software dev. It's not always just hands to keyboard writing code. It's also just thinking sometimes, which is dangerous. But thank you all so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Hope you all have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. Stay curious, and until next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.